All right. I believe we are live. So, how's everybody doing tonight? I see there's a couple people already in the chat tonight. So, thank you for everyone that came out tonight. Tonight is a very different episode. We're talking pretty much all Ethereum because that's what everybody wants to know. What's going on? What is happening really with Ethereum? And today I actually have Forrest from the YouTube channel Hashoshi. How's it going, man?
How's it going? Thanks for having me, K-Dub. I'm stoked to be here and talk Ethereum.
Yeah, definitely. And, by the way, we can make a thing out of this. It doesn't have to be Ethereum all the time. I just was thinking to myself, like, what a great opportunity to talk to an actual developer when all of this is happening right now. So, I guess, like, long story short, man, what is happening with Ethereum? Like, I mean, first of all, we can obviously talk about price. That's probably what everybody wants to talk about. But
Yeah,
considering I have you actually on the channel, we can push that a little later. I wanted to ask some of the things that are up and coming. I mean, people are saying it's dead, it's a dinosaur, it's
yeah.
over. So what are some of these up and coming things, with 2.0? I know we have the proof of stake. Can you kind of talk about like the beacon chains and the Casper FFG and what's all that about?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the big things was originally proof of stake was planned for this year. And for people that aren't really sure what proof of stake is, more or less the idea is that they wanted to replace proof of work. That is the dinosaur. It's really good at what it does, that consensus mechanism, but it's super compute resource intensive. All the hate you hear about Bitcoin and Ethereum and how much energy it wastes, that's the main point of failure is proof of work. So they wanted to replace it with proof of stake that's more scalable. You're hearing that as a theme all over the place. You have scalability blockchains. That's all they do is scale. So the idea here is let's try and have the biggest holders of coins on the network kind of have a say in the correct blocks because the idea is they have the biggest stake. They're going to have more of an incentive to do the right thing rather than devalue the currency they hold. But the issue is that taking that into a practical sense is kind of difficult. And originally, the developers, the open source team behind Ethereum, the original stake, the minimum stake was 1,500 Ether, which at that point you can't even do proof of stake because no one has 1,500 Ether just to blow. I mean, you'll have like the big players like Consensus and Prismatic Labs and the other development shops that everyone there owns Ether. And, you know, Joe Lubin, the guy who created Consensus, he was, like one of the creators of Ethereum. So he has the Ether. But then you have a fully centralized system,
Well, that's what I
which
was gonna
defeats the
say.
purpose.
What do you
Yeah.
think about that? I mean, because when you move to proof of stake, now you're basically giving the guys that have more Ethereum more
Yeah.
power. So that's not fair, right?
Right. And then it's tragedy of the commons because you have everyone that uses the network really has no say because they don't have that amount of Ether. They don't have that much wealth. And then you have the whales that have full control, do whatever they want. So then you do have a centralization issue. So there was a lot of pushback on proof of stake. And I was one of those people. Like I work with Ethereum. I'm an Ethereum developer in my day job. I hated the idea of proof of stake because even if it scaled, it still scared the hell out of me that you had to have 1,500 Ether to stake. So what they decided to do instead is push that update out, and that's that Casper update. And instead of having that stake be 1,500 Ether, they're trying to get that down to 32 Ether. Now that's not chump change either. Even at the low prices that we're at now, it's still, like close to 7 grand. So, is that enough? Probably not, but it's much better than 1,500. I think there's going to be a lot of people that have been in Ether since the beginning that do have that can play a part in validating transactions and making blocks in the future, right?
Somebody just said, well, keep in mind, soon 1,500 Ether will be $1,500, so we should be fine.
Yeah, at the current rate, it could be for sure. And that's part of the reason why I think a lot of people are super frustrated with Ethereum because there's so much wrong with the protocol from a like just a baseline perspective. Like working with it full time, I am super aware of how all the pitfalls, like there are a lot of things about Ethereum that drive me nuts as a developer that just don't make sense. And I think the issue is that it wasn't built for this the kind of the ways that it's being used. It wasn't built for it. And so you have, the crypto kitties thing. I don't think anyone thought that was going to happen. Like when I saw that, I was like, are you joking? Like this is insane. But then you have more games like, crypto zombies and other
Yeah.
things that are relevant and people care about it. So scalability is an issue just for transactions, but then you factor in games and other clogging efforts on the blockchain, you have a real issue. So, proof of stake wise, Casper, it's getting pushed into a new round of updates that they're calling Constantinople. And it's going to get down to that 32 ether stake by introducing sharding. And I think if anyone's in computer science or anyone's worked with database technology before, sharding is a concept that is used quite a bit in databases. I work with MongoDB a lot. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. And basically the idea is instead of having one sort of channel where you can push data through and you can store everything in one spot, there's only one method by which you can verify data. Instead, you can break that process out into multiple different channels. So if you think about that in terms of a blockchain, you can have multiple individual like sharded blockchains that keep their own state. They have their own bundle of transactions and they kind of work independently. And then you then have to say, okay, well then if there are all these separate chains that are in shards, there needs to be some sort of main record of everything. And that's called that beacon chain. So when you have these different sharded blockchains, they feed their state back to this main beacon chain. And you can think of that more like what the main chain is today. It's like a system of record for everything that's going on in the network.
Yeah, because I was going to say, as far as the chains connecting, I mean, what is your thoughts on the actual on-chain scalability? You're seeing guys like Zilliqa, and,
Yeah.
they're only doing like 2,800 or something like
Yeah,
that transactions.
for sure.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a multi-chain system that would essentially communicate with itself? Because do you really think like
Yeah.
you can fit everything that we would need on one chain? Is that actually possible?
So when you start to look at like the ways that these blockchain networks, even Bitcoin, which in my opinion is the real dinosaur, it's a really, really good dinosaur in the way that it still works today. But the way these things work is pretty fascinating. There's a lot of data that can be hashed and kind of crammed into a really small amount of space. If you think about, Bitcoin, since nothing's truly deleted, there's 10 years of transaction history on that blockchain network. And, if we had 10 years of transaction logs, in raw format, it would be insane. It would insane amounts of data. So the compression part of it is also a factor. They have to be able to take these sharded blockchains, and they're pretty much only sending one or two data values back to that main chain. It's a lot of hash values and just reference points.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
how they can kind of make it work. But that's the thing. These updates are so technically challenging that it's taken years of research just to prove that the concept works, let alone implement it. But the one thing I will say for the Ethereum community is the Ethereum community is pretty dedicated. The Ethereum, I guess people can argue that the Ethereum Foundation, and that includes Vitalik Buterin, that they have too much power. They reference that, the DAO hack and the reversal and all that sort of stuff. Definitely noted. But I think over the years, it's gotten a lot more decentralized in that way. I think you have like Prismatic Labs, you have Consensus, you have a bunch of different teams that are pretty big now. I mean, Consensus is now, they have thousands of employees. I mean, they have a pretty big say in the marketplace, and they're all working on Ethereum.
But do you think that we're even truly ready for that type of decentralization? I mean, we talk a big game over here, but I mean, look what
Yeah.
happened, for example, with the DAO hack, right? Now,
For
if
sure.
we had just left it and code is king, right?
Yeah.
How many people would have lost their money? And I'm sure that those people that were able to get their money back, well, they're not complaining, but
For
what
sure.
happened? Somebody stepped in, made a decision to fork, right? So then you have centralized powers, covering everybody, making sure, I know we're not. So the question is, like, are we really all ready to be our own bank? Like, are we really ready for what this tech is actually trying to do? I mean,
Right, and the short answer is no. Like we say this at work a lot, when we're working with clients that want to get into, blockchain applications, and they say like, oh, well, smart contracts, they kind of speak about these like smart contracts as magic, like they're going to solve our problems. And we always say like smart contracts, they aren't smart and they're not contracts. It's just code. The person who writes it is fully responsible for everything that happens. And it's even more high risk than normal applications because it's immutable. You can't go back and change it, and you can't go back and completely erase and rewind if you make a mistake.
Right.
So I would say half the battle with these new solutions for scalability is going to be closing the loopholes, because I think anyone who's even played with Solidity, the smart contract language, knows that if you don't know what you're doing, and even if you do know what you're doing, there's so many traps that you can fall into that can cost a lot of money.
Well, doesn't projects like Nebulous, don't they have smart contracts that can actually evolve over time? I mean, have
Yeah,
you
and that's an interesting one, because if there's one feature that we haven't really seen movement on with Ethereum that I really want, is like I don't want mutable contracts. So I don't want you to be able to go in and edit a contract that's there. But I want a way for you to migrate data from one contract to another to update business logic. That's what I would like. That way you don't have that, because if you introduce mutability, it can get dangerous, because then you can have attackers or hackers going in and changing contracts, which you don't want. But you want the owner of the application to be able to make updates in the future. So that's an issue that I don't think is going to get solved anytime soon, because that's another really tough one. But I think the theme of the rest of 2018 and 2019, maybe even past that into 2020, is going to be all about interoperability and scalability. And so you're going to see those things kind of mesh together, because I don't think that you're going to see, like we talked about before, main chain scalability to the levels that we want.
right?
I mean, Ethereum is 7 transactions per second, like 13 on a good day.
Right. Well, what do you think about these other solutions that are already out there now? I mean, some people in the chat have even brought up GoChain. Obviously, EOS, that was supposed to be the Ethereum on steroids, the killer.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about that as a coder in general? Have you had an opportunity to look at these other
Yeah.
opportunities? I mean, if you weren't on Ethereum, for example, what protocol would you use if you had to pick one?
Yeah, I've played with quite a few. I think there are a lot of promising ones. I actually did have a chance to build an app with on Stellar, which was really interesting. I think they have a good structure for financial services use cases. But you're starting to see now, like, protocols that were trying to do everything are now like, all right, you know what? This isn't working. We're going to try and niche down, and we're going to optimize our protocol for a specific industry or a specific use case, and we're going to make that scalable, because that's a lot easier than making something scalable for everything.
Yeah. Some people kind of call it, though. I mean, this is an analogy I've seen thrown around a lot, even by Dan Larimer himself. They say that for you trying to basically change Ethereum now, you have all these dApps, you have how many ERC20s floating around. Now we have the
Yeah.
non-fungibles coming out. I mean, is this the
Yeah.
equivalent of trying to change the engine while the car is running? I mean, how difficult of a task are we talking here?
Yeah, it is a difficult task, because, and that was one of the things, that kind of plays into interoperability. If, is there a way that we could take these protocol changes and we could implement them in a soft fork, so that all of these existing ERC20 tokens and all these existing projects don't completely break? I don't know how like plausible that is per se, but in the past, I mean, for example, the ERC20 token standard has changed a few times over the last year. And all of those ERC20 tokens that exist have had to sort of comply with those. And they've taken that in stride, and they've done a pretty good job. And the ones that haven't have ultimately failed. So, same thing we're seeing with ERC 721. I'm pretty sure that, and that's for the crypto collectibles, the non
Yeah.
fungibles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that token standard just recently got hammered into stone. Like, it was, I think I just built a fun app, like, to play around with it after CryptoKitties came out, to see what it was like. And I built it with the original ERC 721 from the Open Zeppelin libraries. They do like secure smart contract libraries, so you can use them as template.
Mm-hmm.
That token contract, I think it was like 7 months ago, is not even close to the same as the one that exists today.
Really?
Yeah.
So
So it's
so
like,
they are evolving then. I mean, because
yeah,
even you kind of have even the branch off of that. You have the 1155s now, where you can bundle them all together.
yeah,
Because I mean, think about it. Like you got to think about these. Imagine if you're in a video game and you're trying to send things back and forth at a rapid pace. Every single time you got to deploy a little bit of gas, right, to send this and that. And what if you're doing massive quantities of items?
right. Yeah, and that's what it comes down to is when you get something that goes viral, like CryptoKitties did, and people really want to do it and they really want to use it. Those contracts, they take up a lot of gas. They take up a lot of resources to issue because the creation of the kitty and breeding the kitty and all this other stuff, those are transactions that cost gas. And I don't think even the creators of the game thought that it was going to be that big. Like I really don't think they did. I think it was an accident.
Mm-hmm.
And those were things like that's why I say Ethereum was built on the premise that stuff like that, what no one thought that that was going to happen. So now it's sort of like going back and being like, all right, we need to fix some of the issues that have arisen over the course of Ethereum's evolution over the last 6, 7 years.
You kind of got me thinking about smart contracts now, and you were saying they're not really that smart and they're not really contracts. So, like, what are they? Because without, you're seeing a lot of them, they can't even tap into the real world without some type of an oracle. That's why you
Yeah.
have projects like Chainlink and all these other things, right? But then here's my question as well. Doesn't that still, even like, so you have a smart contract, it's being tapped in with an oracle, but doesn't that still have to have input from a person somewhere? So there's still a
Yeah.
chance of human error even happening with these contracts.
Right. And that's a problem that Ethereum and the all the people behind Bitcoin, everyone, no one can solve that problem on their own. It's going to take, there are a lot of other technologies that are going to have to play nicely with blockchain to make this stuff happen the way it's supposed to. Because you're totally right. As soon as you start introducing external data, you have the opportunity for someone to realize that's feeding your smart contract, as immutable as it is, and manipulate that data that's going in. Good
Like a
data in, good
prediction
data
market,
out.
like
Exactly.
what if it's going to rain today, or and it pulls the wrong data from the wrong town or something like that, and then this guy gets
Yeah.
all the money or something, and it's
Yeah. And so here's the thing. I think so. When I went to school for information technology, but I was kind of a not so great developer, and I didn't. I
don't
kind
say
of
that
gave
out
up.
loud.
I gave up on it early on, and then I came back to it like after 6 months, and then it clicked for me, and I picked it up, and what helped me pick it up was Ethereum and the JavaScript libraries that came out
Hmm.
for Ethereum, and so I kind of grew up coding with Ethereum and some of the other web app libraries that came out for it. So I've gotten well acquainted with some of the crazy ways that Ethereum can sneak up on you. But I will say by that same hand, if people are thinking like, "Oh, well, I'm not technical, so I can't really learn this. Like I can't go and I couldn't be an Ethereum developer." If you wanted to develop smart contracts, you could, even if you don't have a development background, you can definitely do that. Like you can learn that. And I think people would be very surprised what they could build with a smart contract. Like I'm not saying building back end like databases and doing crazy APIs and all that sort of thing, just the smart contracts. I think you'd be very surprised at how simple it is to pick up the basics.
Well, I mean, I'm not a developer, but I've heard that Solidity is a little more difficult than some of the other languages. Is that true? I've
It's difficult to do well. I don't think it's difficult to I don't think it's difficult to understand the structures and how things work. And it's new enough that there's a lot of resources out there that are still relevant. And like for example, it's in your name that Crypto Zombies course is fantastic. Like
I know, and if trust
yeah.
me, if I go back in time and pick a different name, man, I would have. I had no idea that Loom Network was going to come out with crypto
Yeah.
zombies. I'm sure one
They
day they're going to sue me, and I'm going to have to change the name. But
no man, you can say, hey, I did it first. But
yeah, it's whoever
yeah,
gets it
that
trademarked or registered first.
for sure. Yeah, but those types of courses are so great, and you can pick up so many different, like you can at least understand Ethereum better, even if you don't, like after you finish the course, like I still don't know how to code this stuff. I think people will understand how things are built a little bit better, and it'll make a little bit more sense when you start thinking about smart contracts and how these dApps work.
So what do you think about like smart contracts moving forward? Do you think it's important for people to kind of start to have these? I mean, do you see in the future just more of like a drag and drop push button type implementation, like where these developers are going to make it way more friendly for the average person?
I think that you're going to see applications that sort of are like they spawn smart contracts where you have, for example, boilerplate agreements that are built by a skilled blockchain or Solidity developer, whatever you want to call it, so that you know that they've addressed all the security concerns. So these highly audited smart contracts. And then all you're doing basically on the front end, or even as a developer, you're going in and making customizations to those. So that core functionality is there, but you're kind of adding your custom spin on it. So whether that's like a boilerplate legal agreement, you don't have to worry about building the whole thing out. You just need to make sure that the dollars and cents are right, make sure that the names are right and all that sort of thing. The app takes care of the rest for you.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
definitely see that happening. And then in terms of the language, it's either going to go one of two ways. Either the next after this update for Casper and sharding, and then there's one other one I do want to talk about before we sign off today. But Solidity is either going to be the next thing to get an update, the language itself, because there are some issues with it.
Well, aren't there Solidity plus pluses now? Is that I've seen some people roll that out.
Yeah, so there are people kind of like reskinning Solidity, which there's a lot of that. Like I think, and for the clients too. So as in the client that talks to the Ethereum blockchain, the API client,
Hmm.
there are a ton of different languages because some people love Python, some people love C++, some people love whatever language. Rust is another big one. They have all sorts of different Ethereum clients out there. It's the same thing for Solidity. There are people trying to make it a little easier for Python developers or C developers.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think
I think that's the key, though. It has to be made easier because not everybody is going to go out and learn this. I mean, you can barely get people to go out, set up a Coinbase, and actually learn how to use like wallets, let alone
right.
expecting the average individual to want to like create their own smart contract. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. And I think one of the harder things too is trying to convince people why an Ethereum based or any blockchain based application is better than what they already have. Because if you do your job correctly as a developer, a customer or an end user isn't supposed to sit there and look at their phone or their app and their computer and be like, yeah, this blockchain stuff's complicated. It should not, they shouldn't feel any of the complexity.
Right. Nobody cares how this works. You know,
Yeah,
I
no one
scroll through it.
cares.
I go on Instagram. I don't care how it works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, so that's the biggest challenge to like true adoption is a lot of people don't even understand how the internet works today because they don't need to. They don't really care, and that's totally fine. It's the challenge of selling this new structure of applications and this new way of doing things without having to make people understand how it works under the hood
mm-hmm.
fully.
Right. I mean,
So,
people drive
yeah.
cars. They don't know how engines work.
Yeah.
I actually, it's funny you said that because I had a well, I have rants all the time in my videos, but I had a rant this morning kind of talking about it. I think personally, it doesn't have to be just as good. I think it has to be better because people
Yeah.
are lazy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, even if you give me something that's just as good, okay, well, this is just as good. You know what I'm saying?
It's just as good, and I already figured it out. So.
Exactly. So I wanted to ask some questions about, if you don't mind, just because there's a lot of questions in the chat, and there's so much we could talk about.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about that third. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about that first, because then I want to ask some questions about some of the competitors out there, because that would be interesting to me. But
sure.
I want to hear that last thing about the eWebAssembly or the eWASM, as some people.
Yeah.
What the heck is that? Before we move on.
So so Ethereum WebAssembly, and after I get off this live stream, actually, I'm going to post. I have a video about these things, these three things we talked about today. So, I'm going to shameless plug.
Yeah,
Definitely go check out that video on my channel.
Go check out his video.
That would be great. I started YouTube this year, and it's been a blast. I love sharing this stuff with you guys. So, long story short, Ethereum WebAssembly is the last kind of piece of this Ethereum 2.0 puzzle, and the idea behind this is to make the kind of the underpinnings of the Ethereum network more efficient. So the Ethereum virtual machine is kind of the little engine that makes smart contracts run and helps people build applications and do all sorts of things with the Ethereum network. And the issue with it is that it's not that fast, it's not that efficient, and overall, it's kind of a pain to use at times. So, what they're trying to do with eWebAssembly, which is short for Ethereum WebAssembly, is take that old Ethereum virtual machine and make it more compatible with other languages. So we've talked about Ethereum being compatible with C languages and Rust and Python. The key here is they want to allow smart contracts to be written in Rust and C natively. And by natively, I mean without having to use a library or kind of an external application or plugin to help you do that. So you could write in Solidity, you could write in Viper, which is a new
Yeah,
smart contract
I was
language.
just looking into that actually.
Yeah, cool stuff. Viper is a pleasure to use. Rust, C, you could do any of those things, and you would be able to do it without having any compatibility issues. So that would open it up to more developers that may not want to dive into a new language. So that's the first thing. The second thing is developers love what are called deterministic processes, meaning if you put a given input into a function, you're going to get the same input every single time as long as the input remains the same. Sorry, the output is going to be the same if you put in the same input. So it's just like the output of 2 plus 2 is 4. You There's no question about it. So when you're trying to build more complex math off of that, you're not going to have to worry about that changing on you. 2 plus 2 is always 4. But some of these processes in the EVM now and some of these other protocols are non-deterministic, meaning even if you plug in the same number, you can get like random answers that don't make sense.
Why would that happen though?
It's at the binary level, so it's not as simple as 2 plus 2 equals 4. But you get these really complex equations that happen, these complex calculations at the binary level of that virtual machine that don't have deterministic values. And so you run into these weird like undefined errors. You get, I don't know if you've ever seen like a web application that says NaN, that like capital N, lowercase a, capital N, which is like basically
Maybe.
that happening.
Okay.
It's like undefined. We have no idea what happened. That's basically what that means. So the Ethereum virtual machine update to eWASM or the WebAssembly is looking to make the rules around what non-deterministic functions are allowed like super strict, so that there are a lot less trapdoors to fall into, more or less.
Hmm. What
And
do you?
then finally, sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't keep. Go ahead. I was
And then,
thinking.
and finally, really, it's just going down at that like deep rooted binary level and making things more efficient. Making things faster so that when you deploy a smart contract, the contract functions don't execute immediately and waste compute resources like they do now.
Mm-hmm. And
Little tweaks.
it's funny because you were talking about the virtual machine. Now, like I said, I don't dive too deep into the code. I'm more of like a white paper fundamental type of a guy. But
Yeah,
what do you think about a lot of? I mean, I don't want to name any names right now, but there's some projects out there that are pretty much just Ethereum clones with a
yeah.
tweak. What do you think about all these guys? I mean, it's overpopulated. There's too many projects doing the same thing. Do you think Ethereum still has that first mover advantage? Like if they get it right, are these guys out of a job or?
So that's the thing. It is tricky because I still think that if someone comes up with a killer, like a true Ethereum killer that does what Ethereum does better than Ethereum and more, they're still in trouble, even though they're the first mover. However, I think the benefit that Ethereum has is that they have a huge developer community. So, first and foremost, these huge updates that they're doing right now, like proof of stake, changing the virtual machine, introducing like sharding capabilities, this isn't easy stuff. Like the Ethereum community is huge, and this is taking a year, 2 years, 3 years to develop.
How many developers would you say roughly? Roughly,
I mean,
like
really, that are contributing daily to the Ethereum protocol, well into the thousands. And then you look at like a smaller project, you may have like 10 people working on it.
yeah.
They can't spin up a protocol level upgrade like super quickly. They just can't do it. It's just because not that they couldn't like mentally, they just don't have the manpower. So Ethereum has a huge developer community and a huge amount of people. Like, I'm not loyal to Ethereum per se. I develop with other protocols too, but I use Ethereum a lot because it has the most mature ecosystem
Right.
from options out there right
So
now.
as an Ethereum developer though, you're not like, die hard. I mean, you'll basically go to whatever tech is the
Yeah,
best at the time or
I really like Ethereum and I have the most experience with it. And so of course there's some loyalty in terms of, it's like comfortable for me. I feel at home. But there are things about it that piss me off that I wish I could change, but I can't, right? So I'm not long story short, I don't think I'm not short-sighted enough to say Ethereum's the end all be all because I don't know that as that's not something I can be
well,
confident
okay,
in.
let me kind of change it. What about the newer tech that's coming out? Like for
Yeah.
example, there's two things. One in particular, DAGs, right?
Hmm.
How do you feel about that? And then also the recent one that as you see, there's been a lot of speculation over is Holochain and their technology. I don't know if you've looked into that at all. So
Yeah.
what is your take on this? I mean, we could start with DAGs, we could start with Holochain. I mean, what do you think about these alternatives?
Yeah. These alternatives are they're innovative and the concepts make sense. So I think a lot of people they read the Holochain white paper and they've read a lot
I
about
tried to read it. It was like 95% math. So I
yeah.
actually the my admin in my Telegram group, he actually runs a Quantalysis, and he actually had to dive in for me on that one because that was just
Yeah, what were his thoughts on it?
um well, like anyone's thoughts,
Was
right
he
now
was he
it's
impressed or no?
well, I mean, it's exciting. It's different.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So anything that's new, the new shiny thing. I remember when Neo came out, and I was one of them. I was a Neo fanboy. Flipped out. Oh, the DBFT. What is this? This is
Yeah,
crazy.
whoa.
And after time, you start to go a little deeper into it, and not to say that any particular tech is bad, but there's a lot of hype in the beginning. So I think with
Yeah.
my personal, I don't know, like I said, I don't know the code. I like Holochain. I'm rooting for them, but I need, we got to see
Yeah,
stuff. We
and
have to see it
that
get
would be
developed.
agreed. And that would be my read too, is looking at the white paper, it's like I think like anyone else, they're good at what they do. They're good at putting this on paper and being like, this is going to solve everything. Like we've answered all the questions, you know?
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, oh, I'm pumped on that. And then you get these like, ICOs that blow up and then they literally blow up because the product doesn't match what they said, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of why we're in this place because we have a ton of projects on Ethereum and outside of Ethereum that are either half-assed, just Ethereum clones or Bitcoin clones or anything clones. I mean,
A lot more than people will admit.
yeah, they're cashing in, and that's why it's up to like it's not only up to the community, like everyone that's watching the stream to like educate themselves and help make sure other people don't fall into those traps, but also it's up to like the folks on YouTube that talk about this stuff to try their best to do their research and
That's a thing. I mean, speaking as a YouTuber, I think that we kind of grew together. I mean, you're a developer. I'm an enthusiast. So, when I first started my channel, it was all new to me as well. So we were all
yeah,
learning together. I
for sure.
think the second time around, people like to talk about price. I know it's depressing. Trust me, I've lost a lot. I'm all in crypto. I'm one of
Yeah.
the very few people that can honestly say I'm all in. So,
Yeah, I'm not all in and I'm still hurting. So I get you.
right. Well, I'm very hurting right now. So, but the thing is I don't worry about that because I know that in all cycles, if you look at all these different things that have come out, there's always the bubble, whatever you want to call it, and eventually the good tech will come out of this. And I think it was a lesson. It just sucks that we had to be a part of it. I trust me, I wish I could have came the next wave and been able to see
Yeah.
all the mistakes. But unfortunately, when you're the pioneer, you're the guy that gets in the boat, you set sail, and you don't know if you're going to hit land or not, But
Yeah.
that's the risk that we take by being the first to really try this stuff.
Agreed. And there's a lot of opportunity in this, this crash, I guess. I don't think you can call it anything else. Like this, it's a huge crash because you're getting to see the projects that have passion and the projects that were just in it for the money, right? The ones who have like kind of fallen off the face of the earth as their token price goes to nothing and they don't have the fans, they don't have like a booming Telegram chat. Those ones that just ghost and disappear, they never cared about their project the way that they needed to make it happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it speaks volumes to the Bitcoin community, the Ethereum community, etc. That no matter what the token price is, no matter what the value is, they're still like chugging along, trying to make this stuff better. That's
I
that's
mean,
that's that's good for me.
what's your opinion on this, on the ICO space? Do you think that that really is what destroyed it? Just too much speculation? I mean, when you have people raising hundreds of millions of dollars, like you said, basically for an Ethereum clone with a few tweaks, that's
Yeah,
insane. Like, how could that have
yeah,
not collapsed when
for
you really?
sure. I agree with you completely. And there's always a lot of that kind of sketchy like back alley dealings where these projects they know deep down, like they know behind the scenes that they don't have anything really innovative. They may have a dope idea, they have a really good marketing team, but they don't have any like real tech. And trying to be problem centric, sometimes too you look through the white paper that sounds really good, and it's like, okay, even if it works, is there an actual problem that you're trying to solve here, or is this just like crypto for the sake of crypto, right?
Well, some of them don't even care. Like that's see, like when I went to consensus, that's when my world got flipped upside down, because that's
Yeah,
when I went from being like happy-go-lucky, cheery crypto guy to realizing how unbelievably manipulated and disgusting the space really is. And that's
yeah,
when, like, after consensus, that's when my whole percent, and I think that had a lot to do. People got so excited, and you notice the price started tanking after consensus, and I
yeah,
think it was because we got this insight into the underbelly where they don't care about their tokens at all. They care about the ETH, right? They have pre-sales upon pre-sales upon pre-sales. These guys are getting guaranteed 10x's out of the gate, and it's all just a scam, just to dump it on the community,
yeah.
and it has to stop. And people are becoming smart. Look, ICOs. I interview guys that I respect them from different projects, and I'm interested in the tech, right? But forget about it. If they're an ICO, forget it. No one's going to watch the video. And it's sad because there might actually be some good tech out there, but
Yeah,
we've just been so burned that
agreed.
we don't want to have it anymore. So,
The time of the ICO, and this is not a news headline. This isn't like some sort of clickbait. The time of the ICO is actually dead. The whole structure of an ICO,
mhm.
it's impossible to manage, it's impossible to regulate, and not all regulation is bad. Look, like hammer regulation's terrible where you just smash everything, but there has to be certain rules in place to protect people from these types of things. And whether that's built into the protocol itself, or whether that's the community protecting each other, something has to be done about it, right? So we're going to see some other way of raising money, and it's a necessary thing.
Definitely, definitely. Actually, there was another question kind of involving tech that slipped my mind. So I know that we're seeing a lot of these different projects coming out with hardware solutions as well, one of them being high performance blockchain. So
Hmm.
do you think that at some point, no matter how hard we work, no matter how incredibly talented these people are, we're going to hit a ceiling? Like, a blockchain can only do so much. Do you think eventually hardware will have to be implemented?
So I think yes and no. I don't think we can put a cap on the software part of it because, whether you believe in Moore's law or not, there's so many things that people didn't think were possible when Bitcoin came into the fray. And then, because a lot of the technology behind Bitcoin's old. Like a lot of it's old. Nothing's really new in there. It's peer-to-peer networking. Like if you use Napster, you did peer-to-peer transactions. Like if you have a bank account, you use like public private key cryptography every single day. Like if you have hashing, we use that all the time. It's just the way that it was structured, and the computing power kind of meshed with that technology, and whomever or whatever Satoshi Nakamoto was kind of saw that and said, okay, well, you can use psychology and technology together to make this work. But it was really nothing new. And I think we're going to kind of hit that same point. Someone's going to look at the blockchain technology of today, and they're going to be like, that was archaic, because we have the capability now, whether that's hardware or software or both, to make this work, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you're in the moment, everything always looks, well,
Yeah.
back in the day, at one time we were debating which one's better, VHS or Betamax, you know what I mean? And
Yeah, yeah.
to think you look at that now and you're just like, well, I'm just going to go watch Netflix,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, history repeats itself. I think it's amazing to me how many times, I get a lot of people commenting on whether it's like Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, that are like, yeah, crypto sucks, blockchain's a joke, whatever, and it's like, how often do people forget how people hated the internet? People thought it was a flash in the pan.
What's this
I actually
internet?
find it's comical now because even if blockchain in its current form is not the answer, it's going to be a permeation of the technology. Like we're not done. It's not done growing yet. So
Yeah, you wouldn't see all these people interested in it. Every time I check the
yeah,
news, it's IBM's doing this and Google's doing that and, just Amazon. And it's just like you're seeing the interest in it. But there is that disconnect sort of between blockchain and crypto. And, we're here. I'm called Crypto Zombie. It's crypto. But you talk to a lot of people out in the real world and they're more concerned about the blockchain aspect of it. The crypto's the part that everyone's confused about. Like, do we really
yeah.
need all these tokens? Is it necessary? I mean, what is your opinion on the future of the space in general? I mean, all these tokens, all these projects. What do you think of this whole space? Like, what's become of it just this year alone?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that there are thousands upon thousands of different cryptos now. Like, I remember the most complicated it was early on. There were like 5 to 7 projects, and you were like, oh, okay, yeah, that one's cool, that one's cool. You can know everything about each project. Now, even if you and I spent every single day, all day, just learning about new stuff, we could never keep up with it. So I think it's going to be one of these things where the protocols that solve the kind of these 3 or 4 big problems are going to be the ones that win out, right? And those core problems are scalability, interoperability, digital identity, and overall getting people to use it. Because some of the best tech that's ever been invented gets no traction and ultimately fails.
Right.
Like the fact that the internet works on technology that I think wasn't even the best option. Like some of the decisions that were made back then were the wrong option, but more people used it, so
For
that's
the
what
for the
worked out.
main internet, you mean like IPFS and all and stuff like that, or what do you?
So no, so I mean like back in the day, like the differences between TCP/IP and its competitors,
Oh yeah,
and yeah,
TCP/IP. Yeah, no, there, dude. That's why I try to talk to these projects, but it comes across as like, oh, he's talking to an ICO. I mean, I'm
yeah,
very interested in that. Like for example, what Block Cloud is really trying to do to the whole TCP/IP layer. They're trying to revamp the whole thing. It's extremely ambitious, but like you said, this is something that it worked back then. But look at what we're doing right now. I'm live streaming on YouTube with you
I
right
know,
now with people
yeah,
chatting. Like this type of infrastructure is eventually not going to support, because we don't even have everybody. Think about all the people out there that aren't even on the internet yet, right? There's
oh yeah,
7.4 billion people in the world. How many of them are actually using the internet?
right. And then you talk about adoption, it's like okay, yes, right now blockchain's inefficient to use globally in terms of the infrastructure part of it. Like you have to have a kind of capable computer to run full nodes and all these sort of things to really make it scale. But then you think about it in the future, it's like as we make these incremental improvements and then you get those exponential improvements, like proof of work is not the answer. It's really good right now. It's effective but inefficient.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to find an efficient and just as effective solution to that problem. I have zero doubt in that. So once we find that answer, then you start to think, okay, well, now this whole like global blockchain thing that scales isn't so out of the question. Can we bring, personalized banking to places that have never had digital banking? Is there a way that we could have like is there a way that countries that don't even have a central, like not a central bank because people have all this hate towards central banks, but can we have a banking system or infrastructure in a country that has like they have nothing but like kind of bartering and paper money that's not tracked, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
There's
mean,
a lot of
you've even
opportunity.
seen like third world countries, like these guys, they'll actually get cell phone services and they'll pull everything that they have into just like, they won't have anything, but they have cell phones and service. You know what I'm saying? And if you could just bring that to them, you
Yeah,
actually give them a system of account. They have a way to pay for things. Because the thing is like the banks don't care. They don't have a name. There's children being born that they're literally no one
they
according
don't
to.
exist. Yeah,
Exactly. They're unaccounted for. They're forgotten people, essentially. And
yeah,
I think that is one of the biggest things that blockchain really wanted to solve. And now it's turned into, my coin's better than your coin and I'm going to 10x on my ICO. And it's
Yeah.
funny because how can we not hold ourselves somewhat responsible for why we are where we are right now with this market? Like, did we really not think this was going to happen? You know?
Yeah, I
And
was I was freaked out in December at the prices that we were at because
oh, yeah, well, the thing for me was I didn't know any better. I didn't know the difference. So for me,
it felt wrong. Yeah.
it was I didn't now it feels wrong. If that ever happens again, I'm cashing out. I'm shutting down the channel. If we ever have a
Yeah.
if we ever yeah. If that ever happens again, you guys all better sell cuz that was crazy. But yeah, I mean moving forward, people joke I'm in it for the tech and you got the guy and he's got like the big chains on and everything like that. But
Classic meme.
in reality, I think what's going to happen is I think that a lot of the people that were in it just for that, they're going to obviously leave. And right now, for everyone that's down, I mean, as far as financial investments are concerned, you don't have to go in every week. You don't have to constantly be buying crypto. This is a new experimental thing. We're not 100% what's going on with it. We don't know.
Yeah.
So right now, I say this is a great time for education. I know that's boring, right? But it's a great time to educate yourself because one of the reasons, and I even consider myself to be in this category, was not educating yourself in what you're investing in. What? Because some guy told you that it does this, or you watched a YouTube video, right? And
Yeah.
somebody said, "Hey, it's going to the moon," and it didn't. Why? Well, because it's crap, and you know what I mean. You didn't.
You just took his word for it. Or you
Yeah.
took her word for it, and whatever.
Absolutely, man. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, dude, we've been going for quite some time on here. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you kind of think we didn't cover or something that you think is really worth... Well, actually, here's something I want to ask you real quick before we go, because I know
Sure.
people... All right, so what do you think about this whole, decentralized internet type thing? For example, you've seen, Substratum try to do the domain thing and even Elastos. I mean, have you looked at Elastos at all?
Yeah, Elastos is one of a project I'm really fond of, and I think what's cool about Elastos, and in the sense of how successful they could be, is that they've been working on this concept for 16 years. And I don't think a lot of people know that. Like Elastos has been around for 15, 16 years, and they were trying to build out this decentralized internet with no central hub and, decentralized storage, and you own your own data, you can monetize your data, all this stuff. And they were missing that sort of baseline infrastructure. And then 2008, 2009, 2011, you see Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're like, that was the missing piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so they start integrating that into their project. And now they're factored as a crypto project, even though
Well, the
that
blockchain
wasn't their
is not
intent.
the full aspect
Yeah,
of it.
it's just a piece.
Exactly. And some people don't
Yeah.
know that the blockchain is a smaller portion of Elastos.
Right.
But like you said, it was the missing ingredient. It was the integral piece to
Exactly.
complete the puzzle.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of that. I think, blockchain isn't the answer to the decentralized internet. It is a piece of the answer to the decentralized internet that we're going to have. So, I mean, you have companies like I'm a fan of Blockstack. I think they're doing really good work in the community, if nothing else, educating people and helping developers learn stuff and start building. If you haven't had a chance to check out Blockstack, I would do that too, because they have
not in depth. No, I've heard of it, but
Yeah.
I should look into it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also it's a fun platform to just kind of see. They have a few clickable apps that you can go in, and it even shows you some of the code that they used to build it, and then you can click through and see what it's doing. It's really cool stuff.
Yeah, cool. I'd love to check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
I've actually what I've been doing recently in the background. I haven't really been talking about it on my YouTube. I've been secretly trying things out. Trying to buy stuff with crypto, trying to try different projects out. Because I'm just so
Yeah.
bored right now with these damn markets. It's basically a slaughterhouse. So I might as
Yeah.
well try these applications, see how they work, see if they're feasible, see if I could hand this to my dad, who you would think he would be. Well, I could talk about my dad all day. He's if it's not on my home screen and I can't tap it instantly, I have no idea how to find it. So I always think
Yeah.
to myself, if he can't use it or it would be complicated for him, then it probably is going to be complicated for most. So yeah, definitely, man.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that's another goal of Ethereum. And I was on a Reddit the other day with I think some of the folks that were behind this WebAssembly project for Ethereum, and the whole concept was, I think someone asked what would be a really good goal for you guys? and he said like, I'm not going to overpromise. I'm not going to tell you something's possible that's not, which I respect, first of all. But second of all, he's like, I think if we could have people running full nodes on their cell phones, I'd be happy. And I just imagine how powerful it would be to have the ability to run a full node that contributes to the blockchain on your cell phone.
It's
I
happening.
mean,
It's going to
yeah,
happen. It is happening.
and that's amazing. And that's like, those are the types of innovations that are going to make this stuff more real. And, people talk about, it does come back to price. People are like, well, you know, I don't really care. Like, I want to know like when I'm going to get my money back. I posted a video about the Ethereum block reward cut yesterday or 2 days ago. And there's so many people that are just so pissed about it because the miners are bummed. So the price goes down more. And then people who invest in Ether are like, all right, I'm getting out because this is ridiculous. And then it goes down more. And so everyone was like, I don't care what they're doing. I'm mad because I just lost all this money. And I get it. Like, I totally understand. But I think for me, like, it's depressing for me too. Like, I hold Ether, so I know like it's cost me a fortune too, but I do believe in the roadmap for sure.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, like I said, I just wanted, by the way, thank you for coming on the channel, man. With all the stuff that's been going on lately, it's nice to just talk to like a level-headed person. You are way more intelligent than I am when it comes to this. Everyone on my channel knows that. I mean, I love the tech, but it's hard to wrap your head around it, especially the deeper layers of it, And
Yeah, it's one of those things that it just takes a ton of time to just pick it up. But I will say that the whole goal of my channel is I do talk about price and stuff sometimes, but
well, we
I
all
really
do.
just want to help. Yeah, I mean, I talk
Yeah,
about price
we all
because
do.
you have
Because
to.
you have to. Because if you're
Yeah,
invested, you have to. It's there.
right.
Yeah.
Most of the time, though, I try and focus on telling people why stuff is happening and how it's happening, and then it's kind of like the price could do this or could do that depending on how this pans out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think any of us are truly equipped to say, all these price prediction videos, like, everyone does them, but at the end of the day, you don't really have an idea what the price is going to be. You have an estimate of what it could be if something goes right, but you don't know if that's going to go right either.
Yeah.
So,
Unless you're a market maker or you bought at seed and it's gonna, wink wink,
yeah,
nod nod, dump it at
or you're
certain,
doing some
right?
sketchy insider
Yeah,
trading stuff.
but I don't know I don't know these people. Nobody knows these people. They're like the elites. So,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question. I'll ask this in front of everybody live. I don't know how everybody feels about this conversation right now, but if I know right now the markets are not interested in a lot of reviews and stuff, but as we move forward, Forrest, like, would you be interested in maybe kind of like helping me out a little bit? Like, for example, I do reviews, but if I can get a hold of the code, maybe you can hop on and help make a better review. We could collab that way, make more transparent reviews for people. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to come on and give, I could give some technical feedback on some of these and talk about just my thoughts. I think it's always cool to see multiple people giving their opinions on stuff. Always helps to round out a review.
yeah, dude, that'd be
I'd love
awesome.
it. I would
Great.
love to.
I'm gonna hold you to it because
I'm
because
pumped.
that's the one thing in my reviews I really wish, like, I go into the white papers, I go into the team, I go into the fundamentals, but I can't do code. I don't know. For all I
Right.
know, you could be selling me air. I don't know. Looks great on paper, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
And, I tell people, I am an enthusiast. I love the space. I'm in it. I hold all crypto. That's all I got. My bank account's a joke. You don't even want to see my bank account. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm here for everybody, and I just want to keep bringing that value to the space. So I really, really appreciate you stopping by. Thanks, man. And obviously, for everybody out there that hasn't checked out Hashoshi, Forrest, he's a really cool dude, as you could tell. I checked his videos out, a lot of education, really good topics. So, and I know, man, it's so hard to get people
It is
to
tough,
even,
yeah.
well, even on YouTube, like, I mean, trying to start a channel now. Are you kidding me? Like, it's
Yeah.
hard. People, they've lost so much faith in it. So, yeah, man, just keep doing your thing. And thank you so much for the really awesome, just no BS educational live stream. I appreciated it.
Anytime at all, let me know. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon again on KDub's channel. Thanks for watching. And, if you have any questions, you can shoot me an email. My email's on my channel page, or you can hit me on Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want. I'll always answer.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. This is one of my
Word.
favorite live streams recently, man. It was just, this is the stuff that I like to talk about. The stuff that
Same.
people are talking about, you know? I mean, it's fun having projects come on, but then it's kind of like, you know, let's just talk about your project for
It's like a marketing pitch at the end
yeah,
of the day.
it is.
Yeah.
It is, which is yeah, and I get it. People are sick of it, you know? But it's cool because I mean, I even had an interview the other day and the, you know, the CEO, he actually said, "Don't buy our tokens for speculation." He said that. He was like,
Yeah.
only buy it if you're going to use it. And I was like, man, if more people talked like that, maybe we wouldn't be in this predicament instead of like
Yep.
Lambo Moon, you know, and what we've all been there, man. So thank you so much. You're amazing, Forrest. Everybody that came out tonight, thanks for sticking it out, guys, you know, and I really appreciate it. And we're on to something big here. It's just going to take a little bit to get the wheels going. You know, we got a little bit more work to go. So, but we're good.
Absolutely.
So, all right, guys. So thank you so much for coming out. My name's K-Dub. This is Crypto Zombie. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course,
Cheers.
peace out.